Wednesday night. You're not losing your mind. It's Tuesday morning. We're doing something new and different today. Who knows if it might add a nice little. Hi, everyone. How are you? I am so glad that you have joined me today. You know, my cohort, Phil, is usually with me, but he is off doing a voiceover on a show that has a family, and they're all meeting for the first time today. So Phil couldn't change his schedule, and that's just the way it flows sometimes. But I'm so glad you're with me because I am so excited about this guest today. I'm excited about all of them, but I'm especially excited about this one because it takes us into an international vein. And that's why we're here on Tuesday morning. So, hello there, Instagram. I can't wave at you guys because as you saw me turn the cameras behind me. Hello there, Facebook, and hello there, YouTube audience. So we usually start about our week. So the week has been going really good. It's a little cold here in Los Angeles, but the sun is shining. And you know, I could talk about a few other things, but I think I'm going to bring our guest in because he is director, producer, screenwriter, creative visionary, storyteller. I think that's my biggest call to this man, storyteller. He's in South Africa where it is now 7:32 p.m. their time. I'm grateful that he is meeting with us. But before we go, our guest, Mandla Dube, I want to play you a little something that shows you who this man is. Oh, Manla, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone.
I'm so glad to have you here. You know, we met just about 3 weeks ago because we have the
Mhm,
same manager and had a lovely conversation. And I couldn't wait to get you on here because you just stirred all those creative juices in my mind. And just with
mhm,
us as Black people around this world, what we are doing in South Africa, I'll tell you, when I was growing up and I was entering this business, I
mhm,
was told I was working for a company that supplied videotapes
mm,
around the world, and they
mhm.
wouldn't put black films because they said black films don't sell. And
Oh,
this was maybe 30, 40 years ago. And look where we are now and all the work you've
wow.
done. Please tell us something about yourself and how you got started.
Oh, thank you so much for having me again. Where do I start? VHS and all of that
The
were some of the introduction. But I didn't have speech until I was about 7 years old,
Oh,
and
really?
it yeah, it was being put in front of a television and going to cinema with my siblings. And in our neighborhood, we were about the only ones that had a TV set, and that helped to unlock my tongue. So I started mimicking the sounds that were coming out of the television, and it helped me to be able to unlock my tongue. So that's how I got introduced to the world of make believe and escapism and so forth. And I mean, I didn't know at that age that end up becoming a filmmaker. So flash
Mm.
forward, went to high school, went to college. I went to an HBCU, Clark Atlanta University, and at that time, the you know big filmmaker was a gentleman by the name of Spike Lee. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna do what he's doing. And I was supposed to go and do electrical engineering, and nobody was around to say, no, you will do what we ask you to do at home. And I just ticked radio, TV, and film, and got introduced to the world of filmmaking by Dr. Herbert Eigelberger, who was also Spike's professor at Clark. And he sort of made us believe in ourselves as storytellers and to tell stories that are meaningful about who we are as an African people. Yeah,
How did you so
and
you were in a I'm
that's how
sorry,
I
go
got
ahead.
no, no, that's how I got introduced to television and so forth. And then I did an internship at CNN World Report at
Mm.
the time in Atlanta. And from then on, I didn't like being indoors. And I went to work at a rental facility where I started cleaning lenses and cameras and all the gear that we use on motion picture sets. So that's how I really got introduced. Then I really liked it. I started shooting a lot of music videos in Atlanta. Worked with some of the directors at the time, like Hype Williams and Keith Ward and so forth, and cut my teeth on put together a show reel,
Mm.
and that's how I really tasted what it's like to be behind the camera. And then lo and behold, Spike came into the city to he was producing a film called Drop Squad, and
Mm.
I got to be a camera PA and a camera assistant on Drop Squad. And the cinematographer, and that was a gentleman by the name of Ken Kelch, and he asked me, "What do you really want to do?" I said, "I want to do what you're doing. I want to be behind the camera." And he said, "Stop thinking about it, thinking
Ooh.
that you gotta be a stand and that. Just do it. Pick up the camera and start shooting." And yeah, the rest is yeah, that's how I got introduced to the industry.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's fascinating. Did your parents put you in front of the television or take you to film thinking it might unlock your voice or just happened?
It just happened. It was more, the TV was more of a babysitter than anything. It was more of a babysitter than
Yeah,
anything.
that was a good
So
babysitter.
yeah, yeah. Because I mean, I had nobody. I wasn't playing with anybody. I wasn't saying anything. I was just, yeah. I was just. There weren't much words I was using, and just sounds and so forth. So,
Mm.
so yeah.
Mm.
That's so I got. So that's yeah.
I love that. How did you end up in America?
Okay, so in 1986, 85, 86, my brother had been going to the University of Alabama in
Mm.
Tuscaloosa. And and then in South Africa, it was the height of apartheid. It was a state of emergency. The country was being made ungovernable by the youth through the ANC from outside and the PAC and other liberation movements. And it was education, beginning an education, especially in the townships, was just not feasible. It wasn't an option. So my parents said it's best that you go into. I got into self-exile, if you want to call it that. And they
Mm.
said your brother's already in the U.S. Go and it's best to go and join him and keep him company, let him finish university. And when you're done high school, so I finished high school in the U.S.
Ah,
And when he said, "Okay, let's go back home," when he graduated from Alabama, I was like, "No, no, no. I would rather stay on and pursue my interest in
right.
going to college." And yeah, and one of the biggest cities that we used to go to from Alabama was Atlanta, and there was a big South African community there. A lot of activists, a lot of anti-apartheid activists, who gave it made it a home for us, for those who were living in outside of South Africa. So you met people from South Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, the U.S.
Mm,
If you know anything about the AU Center, it's the mecca of where African Americans and the whole diaspora meets. So yeah, I got really conscientized. I got introduced to books that I would have never been introduced to
mm,
in South Africa, and I intentionally said I have to tell stories that are uplifting for an African people, and wherever I go, I will always make sure that the story of who we are gets told and gets curated well. So I
mm,
started out as a photographer then, and then I put together a show reel and got married, came back to South Africa. In 1996. Now, well, we came back for the elections when Nelson Mandela had been released and we were voting. Actually, we just had our Freedom Day 2 days ago, on April 27th. That was the first day that we as black people were able to vote.
ah,
So came back.
congratulations.
Yeah, yeah, it's 30 years, 30 years. We're still young, but it's a long journey. So it's yeah, and that coming back to South Africa with the show reel of work that I had done, and I thought I could be able to get work here. My wife at the time and she was like, "Let's go back home. There's just no need for you to be in Atlanta anymore. We are free. We are free." And I came back here with my show reel, try to get work, and no, freedom was not there yet.
Mm,
It's still a very colonial apartheid country, and I couldn't get any work as a cinematographer. I then started a production company called Family Productions, and I would hire directors in so that I could be able to shoot for them, uh, whether it was PSAs, commercials, music videos, and so forth. And that still wasn't enough, and ended up, I think it was in 1999, where it was just not, one wasn't moving anywhere
mm,
locally, and we decided as a family that I've always wanted to do my master's in filmmaking, and we picked up and moved to Los Angeles to go and study at the conservatory at the AFI. I went to do my master's in cinematography at the AFI, and it was a lovely experience because I was able to connect with filmmakers at a high standard, and got some great mentors who
mhm,
then brought me under their wing and gave me exposure, because it's all it is really you got to have access, and if you don't have that access, it's very difficult. You were talking about our common manager, Stephen Adams. Stephen Adams is able to connect you and give you access. The rest is up to
mhm,
you. Got to make it happen. And so that access was amazing, being in Los Angeles, and having the exposure to some of the best and finest cinematographers, directors, and script writers. And things didn't work out with my wife, and we split up and ended up coming back to South Africa in 2005, and I started lecturing at Wits University in cinematography. And then I saw the apathy in my students, and they were not interested in wanting to vote, and they were like, no, the
mm,
liberal movement wasn't didn't really do much. They were putting down Nelson Mandela. They were like, "Oh, Mandela sold us out," and I was like, "You just don't get it. There are folks that laid their lives down. There are people who died to see us to where we are right now. Then I got introduced to Solomon Mahlangu's family, who's an activist that was executed by the regime, the apartheid regime in South Africa in 1979 on April 6th. And then I thought, let me make a film for my students so that they can be able to be conscientized and
Mm.
see what people have done. And this was a young man. He was executed at the age of 23. And then I came up with this concept. I said, how about we do a trilogy of films under the umbrella of The Legends of Freedom, and Kalushi, the story of Solomon Mahlangu being the first one, Silverton Siege, to be the second one, and the third one to be the Rivonia trial, the trial that landed Nelson Mandela in prison in 1964. So having actually looked being lived in the U.S. and saw people like Tyler Perry who did stage plays and they went on to make films from that. I said, okay, if he could do that, I mean, I can learn from that. So I took Solomon Mahlangu's, I took the trilogy concept, and I went to the South African State Theatre and I said, guys, here's some amazing stories that I think we need to curate together. Are you interested in perhaps doing theater on this so that we could develop these stories? And they agreed, and we did a Galushi as a stage play, and we did the Rivonia trial as a stage play.
Mm.
Then I said, well, I didn't go to the AFI. I didn't go and work on all these big films and be mentored by all these folks to be in theater alone. Let me take this work that I've curated and move into what I really want to do, which is filmmaking. And again, let me get a director to come into the production company so that we could be able to do this. And I think I must have gone to like five directors, and all of them were like, no, 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 I wouldn't even know where to start in telling such a story. Uh, and then the fifth guy, Dr. Teddy Matera, who's a writer, he said to me, perhaps this is a story that the spirit of Solomon Mahlangu wants you to tell. Why don't
Mm.
you give it a shot at directing? And I said, me direct? What? And he said, yeah, give it a shot. And I said, well, I've worked with enough directors, I've witnessed them enough on set. Let me give it a try. And I got an acting coach, a director's coach from Colombia, a lady by the name of Adrian Weiss, and got it on the internet literally, and took all the material that I'd done on the stage play, and then I learned from that. I said, it's not gonna be easy, but I'm gonna try it. And lo and behold, yeah, we got National Lotteries Commission in South Africa, the South African Arts and Culture Department, and the NFVF, the National Film and Video Foundation. And I made my first feature film, Galushi, the story of Solomon Mahlangu, and it did really well. Got a lot of accolades. And then one day I'm at a film festival, and on a dance floor, literally, and this guy walks past, and the lady that I was dancing with from the National Film and Video Foundation said, "You should talk to that guy. He's from a company called Netflix." This was in 2017, I want to say 18, 2018. Said that guy right there, and I rushed him, stopped him in the back. He turned around. He's like, whoa, 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 what's going on? He was the only guy in all of this entire continent representing Netflix. His name is Ben Namadasu. And I told him, okay, we've got this film. I played him the trailer on my phone. And he's like, well, this looks pretty good. Send it to us. We'll look at it. We're looking to, you know, acquire films that are of high standard. And yeah, Ben said, "What are you working on next?" And I said, "Oh, I'm putting together this amazing true story about the first non-Japanese African,
Oh,
warrior
yes.
samurai who goes up in Japan." And he said, "But now, what script do you have right now?" I said, "Oh, I've got a script called Silverton Siege." He said, "Okay, send it to us, and we'll look at it." They looked at it. Netflix said they loved it, and before the year was over, we were in development and getting into production to do my second film, titled Silverton Siege, and then it just led to other projects, Jiva with Netflix, Heart of the Hunter, and The Great War with the History Channel. So
Hmm.
after Silverton Siege, Stephen Adam, Netflix said you need a manager. There's no way you can be able to cope to go to the next level without a manager. And I was introduced to Stephen Adams by one of the executives at Netflix, and yeah, and here I am.
I love that. You spoke.
A bit, you know,
What did you say?
I said in a nutshell, you know, that's the
Okay, well, thank you very much
trajectory.
for coming, everyone. So that was that was, you touched on many wonderful things. Um, I want to start with the show is called "The Vision Is Possible," and we're
Hmm.
always talking about what is it that the whole point is. What is it that you want to create? So many times, people look at someone like you. And they think, oh, he must know people. Oh, his parents must have a lot of. Oh, he must do. You pulled yourself up by your bootstraps.
Oh
You
yeah,
came to a foreign country.
yeah.
You were the one who went to these schools to gain access. One of
Mm.
our regulars, thank you everyone for being here today. This is a special show at a special time because Mr. Dube is in South Africa and we want to work our timeline out. Who was it? Andreen mentioned about access is key. It is key, but access doesn't come just because you're born with it, you guys. You can create your own access. And that's what you did. And it wasn't easy from what I'm hearing.
No, 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 no. If it was easy, I think we would all, you know, it. There's no such thing as easy, you know. It's not
Mhm.
easy having a relationship with yourself, let alone with
Mm.
others, right? And what we do takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of focus, discipline, and I think in that process you create luck, and luck begins to happen, and then you start to kind of create your own algorithm, and you check yourself, and you focus, and more focus you have, the more results will happen. It's a lot of work. It is a lot of work, and you have to be willing to work on yourself, and just keep reminding yourself. You literally have to have mantras of some kind, and notes to yourself, so that you can constantly be able to reinvent yourself and be willing to change. I had to change from being a cinematographer to being a director, which is different shoes to wear. I had to change from being only a cinematographer to become a director, and I had to start writing as well, right? So because the minute you start writing, you are really asserting and affirming yourself. The written word, there's a saying that if it's not on the page, it's not on the screen, right? So
Mhm.
I had to make sure that it's on the page, it's on the page. Think about it, put it on the page, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But don't stop creating, and to work at the level that one is working at now. And I'm still growing. I mean, look at what folks like Ryan Coogler are doing with the
Mm.
current success of Sinners. He's still growing, and it's inspiring to see filmmakers like him do what he's doing. So it's just growth, and you have to be willing to grow and trust the process, and there's a producer writer who told me that you have to trust your instincts. It's all you've got. If you don't trust your instincts, you're in the wrong game. You're in the wrong space. So, and I keep sharpening with every project, every story. I have to trust my instincts. If I write it down, because you also can't just trust your memory. Your memory is what you write down, and you remember. Oh, yeah, in it, iterations, and that's the only way that you can be able to get, to get at it. I
And do you
must say, it is not an easy thing. But if I can do it, the guy that didn't have speech until the age of 7, I'm sure if you if you put your mind to it, you can get it done.
do you also find that in what might be a mistake or might be I'd say, a mistake or something that didn't work out, that you learn from that, right? You don't spend
Oh,
time wallowing within that.
oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's you there's a thing of failing forward, right?
Mm.
You have to that you fail forward. What did you learn from your you have to focus on your what are those failures? What do I learn from them and how can I be able to use them as a learning lesson to inform my future? You can't dwell on the past. There's nothing you can do about it, but you can learn from it. Nelson Mandela once said at the school, like, it's all in our hands, right? And the more we focus on what it is that we want, there's no such thing as impossible. You try, keep trying, the answer will come, you know? Yeah.
That's beautifully said. And you know, in that you were talking about being a storyteller. This is what I sorry, I was thinking about what you said. I want to go back to something I said first, which was before I introduced you about how when I grew up, there were not a lot of black filmmakers. We weren't allowed,
Mm.
and supposedly
What,
ours.
what era did you grow up in?
What?
What era, what period did you grow up in?
Long time ago. So anyway, what
The dogs. Who said?
yeah, after let's say my father was in the 60s. I was a little girl into the 70s. I was in high school. And so I grew up in the period where my mother told me, "Oh, you can be a dancer and you can be a
Hmm.
nurse." And then I remember when it switched. I'm so
Right.
sorry. I don't know how to Sorry everyone. I don't know how to put a privacy on my phone. It didn't work. Um, and I remember when my mother came to me one day and said, "Baby, now you can be the doctor and you can own the dance company."
Mm.
And shifting my mind from that was a big deal for me. And
Right.
as I said, when I was about in my early 20s, I worked for a production for a house that brought in that acquired VHSs and they sold them around the world. And I was the only black person there. And they kept telling me, "We can't sell any black product overseas. Black movies don't sell." And then
Wow.
little by little, as years went on, more and more we were making more money, and they'd still say we didn't sell. They're
Wow.
still we were still kept out. What now is so exciting to me is to see people like you, Manla, to see all the people we have here who are black filmmakers and also um, television producers now who are working, screenwriters, and that our stories are out there because they're people
Right.
stories. Yes, they can be about us, and we should be telling our stories because we know our flavor. We know how we speak.
Yes.
We know
Yes.
our history. There were too many times when there might be a story about a black leader, but the white lawyer was really the lead in the film.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
that isn't happening, or we do something and there wasn't the production value. You, my dear, your storytelling is so powerful. Before we came
Thank
on, you
you.
guys, I told Manila that there was a film I saw and it emotionally affected me, and I had to stop speaking for a moment because you know how I get. And the film was Silverton Siege.
Okay.
At the very end, I don't want to give it away, but you guys got to see it. It's on Netflix. It is action, adventure, pathos, good story, heart and soul. It takes place before Mandela was freed. It's just wonderful to see the turnaround of some of
Mm.
the characters at the end was
Mm.
so powerful that it brought tears to my eyes to see.
I'm,
Um,
I'm, I'm,
it was wonderful. You are such a storyteller. And so often, in order for us to step into our greatness, people push us. For example,
mm.
you're looking for five directors, and the
Mm.
fifth one says, "I think you're the one who's supposed to tell this story."
Yeah. Yeah. He said, go to the mirror. You'll find the person who's supposed to tell that story. And
Hmm.
and you know the Silverton Trio, as they are known, were three gentlemen from Soweto. And what one did is that took one of the characters and made it a female character as opposed to three three males. And the reason for doing that is that I had not seen enough stories where female activists in the
Thank
liberation
you.
movement had picked up, and went against the apartheid regime to say we will be free.
Hmm.
And so that's one of the reasons that we got Nokolo Dlamini, along with uh, Thabo Ramethi, and Stefan Erasmus to agree. And I had to ask them, like, are you guys comfortable with us taking a real story, fictionalizing it, historical fiction, and taking this creative license? I had to ask the family members to say, I know that, but it's going to be quite blurred. You won't know which character we've turned into a female. But trust me on this. I can feel it. My gut tells me that this is what we must do. And they said, fine, we trust you, the storytellers. And we went to the grave of their fathers, all three of them. All three of them are buried next to each other at the cemetery. And we asked for permission. And that's part of the process that one takes. Even for Solomon Mahlangu Kalushi, went to ask for permission from his family, went to ask permission from him. And yeah, and I trust that process. And that's similarly with Yasuke. Went to Mozambique, the area that he comes from, to request for permission. That if you really truly trust that your story needs to be told now, please grant me permission, and I won't let you down. So, oops, am I audible?
Yes, we can
Kind
hear
of
you.
froze there.
Oh, you
Oh, okay.
you didn't freeze for
Yeah.
us.
Okay. So that's pretty much part of the process that one takes, is to ask for permission, uh, because these historical figures live, they walk this earth,
Hmm.
and it's important to be guided by their spirit in as far as storytelling is concerned. So yeah.
I teach people how to create one person shows. I've directed a lot of one person shows, and every once in a while I'll do a master class. And there are people who come in and say, I want to write a show about this historical figure. And I tell them, if it is on you, they have chosen you to tell this story. So talk to them.
Right.
If that is where it is, you talk to them, because our relationship with the spiritual world, they walk among us. We need to bringing
Yeah.
them into not only our creative process, but just everyday living. I think brings
Yeah.
ideas to us, brings, like you say, luck to
Yeah.
you, because you're out there partying, and the only man in South Africa who represents Netflix is walking by you.
No.
Of all the
Yeah, that's true, right? That's interesting that you say that. So you also have to be able to pick up these nuances and these
Mhm.
subtleties, these signs that are in front of you, and if you're not awake to it, things can just walk right past you, and you're not awake to it. Malcolm X said there are three kinds of people in the world. There are those who are going to be asking, "What just happened?" There are those that are going to be making things happen. And then there are going to be those that are just watching and sitting back and saying, okay, I'm just an audience member, I'll just be passive. So you have to choose, which one are you? Are you going to be actively involved
Mm.
in meaningful change, about your people? And I used to listen. My father traveled a lot to the US and to South Africa, back and forth. So he would bring us all these tapes when we were young. So, and he would play it for us over and over. Whenever you're in a car with him, you listen to all these speeches of African leaders that are from Nigeria, Ghana, the U.S., the whole diaspora. So I was very fortunate to be exposed to how important it is to carry the narrative of our ancestors forward, because
Mhm.
we come from We go, we come forth, we go, and it's our responsibility to tell each other stories. And other communities do that. You know, that's a funny thing. Other communities, other cultures do that for themselves. You know, Koreans do that, Israeli people do that, English people do that. Geez, Brazilians do that for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
Japanese people, you name them. And I think for a long time, because we didn't have the means of distribution, we didn't have platforms of being able to have our stories distributed. It was difficult, and now with the likes of Netflix and all these streaming platforms, it's easier. You don't have to rush to Hollywood anymore. You know, you can tell your story from wherever you
Right.
are. You don't have, even in the U.S. Look at Atlanta. Like Atlanta is so big now.
Mm-hmm.
People are telling those there, and even in Los Angeles, people are telling theirs. You know, so it's democratized now.
Mm-hmm.
It's all in our hands.
Yes, it is. And this is the time you and I spoke about in our first conversation. This is a very important time to decide really which one of those three you are. And through
Mm,
I love what we do in the arts because we reflect society back to itself and we can give a different take. For example, putting a woman as the trio in that
mm.
true group of
The
fighters for
activists.
activists. Thank you,
Yeah,
fighters for justice. Yes, and that's so
yeah.
important because a lot of times it can happen through comedy, action, and adventure, drama, whatever it is, because you can sit there and start to laugh and then go, ah, and also be inspired
Mm,
with what you want to do in your life. It's another way of
correct.
teaching. We were so, as
Hmm.
Black people, kept out of the the ability to direct, to write, to produce. I never saw a
Yeah,
director who looked like me before. And I
yeah.
didn't see very few Black women who were actresses who looked like me who were on television when I was growing up. Now,
Right.
we're not only there, but we may also be the showrunner. We may also be the director. And I
Hmm.
love what you're doing as you're doing a little bit of dramatic license to still keep the story true, but to also bring to awareness. There were women out there
Right.
with guns and fighting and bleeding and
Yeah.
dying for what we were doing.
Yeah.
That's so important.
Absolutely. You know, you somebody like Miriam Makeba, the late
Mm,
Miriam Makeba.
mm,
I had a before, you know, the good fortune of being able to interact with her and talk to her when she was still
mm.
with us. And Miriam Makeba, a lot of people don't know, brought a lot of support for the Black Panther movement in the U.S. And she used to support the Black Panther movement, Black Panther Party. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but she for a long time dated Stokely Carmichael's
No.
Kwame Ture. So, you know, and she used that influence by bringing the South African experience into the African American community. And we've been very much with Stephen Adams trying how do we connect these dots? Because
Mhm.
if there's any other time that African people on planet Earth are supposed to unite, it's now. Like
Yes.
it's really now. And South Africa. I mean, I see what's happening a lot in West Africa, where countries like Ghana and Nigeria are welcoming, you know, brothers and sisters from outside of the continent to come there. But South Africa is also one place where the relationship with the African American community goes back to the 1800s, right? There are a lot of South Africans that left here to go to the U.S., and there are a lot of African Americans that came to, in particular, KwaZulu Natal. One of our great ancestors, Dr. J.L. Dube, went to study at Oberlin, and he would end up interacting with W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T.
Mhm.
Washington, and so forth. And it's so key that while we are learning from the past, we can be able to use it to guide our future. And these connections we just got to keep making them happen more and more and more. You know.
Isn't that the point of history? That's the point of us learning history. My father was very big on during the summers. We had to not only have fun, but we had to learn specific poems to recite and discuss them. We had to read Black
Mhm.
history books, which had many
Right.
chapters of different inventors, artists, writers, so forth and so on. And at the end of the summer, come and give an audible verbal book report to him. And
That's
it
great.
may seem like, oh, we're studying during the summer, but it grounded my brother and sister and I in knowing more about who we are and how important our history is. And right now it's being attacked. So it is up to us to stop looking for others to put our history out there for others to tell us who we are, but for us to communicate and to become closer together. That's partly why I was so excited about having you on today, because your work is so good and you've gone back and forth from coast to coast, coast to coast in a very broad sense.
Yeah, sure.
It's very exciting to see that the work you're doing, and I want to touch on what you mentioned, but I want to come back and touch on what you are doing with, is it Yasuke, Way of the Butterfly?
Yeah, yeah, yes, yes,
I'm
yes.
I'm so excited about this. An African warrior who becomes the first black samurai. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, so in the from about 800 AD to about 15 1600 AD, African traders and between what's now called the Zambezi River and the Limpopo River were trading, and there's an empire there called the Monomotapa Empire. You look at Wakanda.
Yes.
Wakanda is modeled after the Monomotapa Empire, right, of the 1500s. And Monomotapa was trading with China, India, the Far East, what's now Japan, um, uh, Indonesia, Egypt, and so forth. So there was a lot of gold that came from the region that we are in. And our hero in this narrative, Yasuke, Way of the Butterfly, is on goes on a quest to return a sacred drum that is stolen from his people, and he ends up in Japan. And there he gets brought into the inner circle of Oda Nobunaga, who was the head daimyo of the region there. And he loved trade. Nobunaga was curious about what came from faraway lands. And there was a presence of African people in Asia. At that time, African people were literally uh, uh, in the eastern part of the continent, uh, mercenaries. They actually helped Europeans that were having difficulty in crossing what's now called the Indian Ocean, because they were pirates that used to ransack and take whatever they were trading. And so Yasuke is this hero who is asked by a Jesuit, Alessandro, to help give him a safe path into warring Japan, because it was just dangerous, right? So hence you saw the Portuguese leave Portugal rather than going through what's called the Suez Canal. They went around all the way to the Cape, right, where South Africa
Mm-hmm.
is, and to come around and head into the east, because they were just losing all the goods that they wanted to trade, and to get them across the Indian Ocean, because Africans and China and Asian people, India, China, were trading with each other for 500 years. There's an admiral who left China, Zheng He. Zheng He came from a city called Guangdong and traveled with 300 ships. He traveled all the way to Africa for trade, for
Mm.
gold, for animal skins, for tusks, elephant tusks, you name it. And they were bringing spices, silk. So back then there were city states, and our world happens between in the period of the Monomotapa Empire, between the Zambezi River and the Limpopo River. Yeah, because at that time gold was mostly in our region here, Great Zimbabwe, Sofala, Beira, Mapungu, Bre, and what's now the Songhai Empire, which is where Mansa Musa comes from, right? You are familiar with Mansa Musa. Mansa
Mm-hmm.
Musa, what's present day Ghana, Nigeria, and so forth. There was a Songhai Empire, and those were the biggest gold producers at the time on planet Earth, really, before mining as we know it today happened.
He's
It was alluvial mining that was happening. So our hero comes out of that wealthy state of the Monomotapa Empire. So
interesting,
yeah,
interesting,
and,
powerful
and
story.
this is something that this is something that Japanese people have written about, referencing the Monomotapa Empire of the 1500s.
And,
So
and this is part of history that we don't know about, that we
yeah,
so need to know. I cannot wait for this story. And with the success of Shogun,
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
and
we yeah. And I'm so grateful that the filmmakers of Shogun took the narrative to tell it from the point of view of the Japanese indigenous people. You know, it
mhm.
wasn't told from the European point of view. So, which is very important.
And look at the success of it. That says so much about how we want to know about each other,
Right,
you
right.
know, and keeping that away from us. You know, it's so interesting to me about this whole issue we're having in this United States about history and getting rid of history. If you do not know who the people are you are sitting next to, if they don't know my history, your history, our history, Asian history, if we don't know about each other, of course we're going to fear each other. We're stronger
Yes,
together if we know
absolutely.
about each other rather than apart from each other.
Yeah.
We've been talking, but I want to share something with everyone. I have a your director's reel that was sent to me.
Ah,
I'd like
oh,
to share
okay.
it with everybody so you can see. I showed you pieces that I put together. Let me show you the man's work. So powerful, so powerful.
Yeah.
As a director
Thank,
myself, looking at other people's reels, that is one of the best reels I have ever seen.
oh, thank you so much.
It's
I'll let my
dynamic.
editor know.
Yeah, let your editor know,
Thank you.
and let the
Yeah, the
director
images
know
look
that.
good, don't they?
Let the director know they did
Look,
some good stuff.
no, thank you
I am
so much. I appreciate.
absolutely. I'm so happy to have you here. Before I let you go, I want to ask you about something about South Africa and the
Yeah.
film. What is going on? What's going on in South Africa film wise? How has it grown? Can you catch us up?
Yeah, look, we are 30 years into our democracy in South Africa, and we've come a long way. Coming from a country that has such a huge legacy of apartheid, and to now be having a voice of being able to tell our stories, one, and freely so, is amazing. And we've got the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition that has a rebate. It's alive. It's still working. It is functional. It's just that for the first time you're seeing the DTIC now saying we want to hear the stories that are being told organically by South Africans hit
Mm.
the international stage. And obviously it's important to have the service side of the industry where Europe, the US, and Asia comes to shoot here to be able to grow the industry. But it's high time now that, and I think that the government is doing its best to see local stories coming from here to outside. And it's growing, and it's just getting better. We're seeing the likes of Mnet now partnering with Canal Plus. We're seeing Netflix here. There's a big show called One Piece being shot in South Africa and Cape Town. We just saw Woman King that came out, was filmed here. We
Mhm.
saw uh, Gina Prince Bythewood is doing her film here, Children of Blood and Bone. The History Channel is here making a lot of from a servicing standpoint. So it's complementing each other in as far as the skills development is concerned, but more importantly, the stories of South Africans are now being told by South Africans, and you don't need somebody from the outside to come and tell your story. So there is growth, and here's to 30 more years.
Wonderful. Here's to 300 more years.
300, right? Right?
I'm
Right? Yeah.
Mandla Dube. Everyone, please, please check Mandla out. I want to show you. Let me see if I've got it here. Ah, I did not. This is the first time. Mandla, would you please give us your Instagram?
Oh,
Tell us
my
what.
Instagram is, what do I do? It's Mandla
Hold on, I'm going to write down
M
Mandlaka.
Kayse underscore DUBE, right? Mandlakayse underscore DUBE. Mandlakaise underscore DUBE.
There we go. And I will
Yeah.
post it also out there when I talk about how wonderful this interview was. I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad you joined me today. And what I always ask every guest is, would you leave us with some wisdom? Not one word, but tell us, guide us to some place where we can make our visions possible.
Um, Stories connect us. Stories are going to be around 1,000, 2,000 years from now. We won't be around, but the stories that we tell will be here. So let us continue telling our story, and let us continue to tell stories that are going to be able to uplift and make a better humanity.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a lovely
Thank you.
evening. And I hope to see you
Thank you so.
soon. I want Stephen to
Yes, we,
bring
we have
me.
to connect.
We really
Yeah,
do. Many
I'll give you a virtual
blessings.
hug.
Ah.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you, darling. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao, bye.
Oh, you guys. How magnificent was that? That was so wonderful. And I'm so sorry, everyone, anyone who's have on Instagram has jumped onto Facebook or jumped onto YouTube for this special live show. I don't know what happened, but Instagram fell out on the phone and I lost you guys, but we're still here. So, my final words. We heard from a man who didn't talk for the first 7 years of his life. And the babysitter, which was television or movie, got him working. We heard from a man who grew up in South Africa during apartheid, who came to America to go to school as a high school student and stayed while his only relative went home to South Africa, stayed here to go to college. A young man who put himself into, changed his major into filmmaking, telling stories, cinematography. He didn't know anyone in this country. He says access is paramount. He created his own access. I'm saying these things for you to really think about this. He created his own access. Mandla spoke about be courageous. Sheldon Upps was here last week. He spoke about bravery, roaring. You get to do that. Sure, we get disappointed by people who tell us, I'm going to make it work for you. Honey, all of us have heard that story before. But the only person you can count on to make sure you have access, to make sure that you get out there, to make sure that your dreams have the possibility of coming true, to make your vision possible, is you. Yeah, we've got a lot of support out here, but the only one person you can count on is you. And as I've said before, if you can't count on you, baby, work on that relationship, because that is a relationship to work on and to have. So, stay on the path. Something Mandla said I really love. He said, you fail forward. Yeah, it didn't work out. Whatever it is that was a challenge, whatever it was that was a problem, whatever no you got and you thought that was the yes, what did you learn from it? How can you make your project better? How can you make yourself better? How can you work better with others? How can you make your vision possible? It doesn't happen overnight. He spoke about it. Mantras. Keep working out, mind, body, and soul. And stay focused. And stay in love with yourself and with what you want to do with this life, which is oh so short. I thank you all so much for joining me on this show. Phil Sends His Love. We'll be back tomorrow night, Wednesday as usual. This was just a special show because Mandla's in South Africa and he is so many hours ahead. So I'm glad for all of you who joined me. Have a beautiful rest of your day or your evening wherever you are. And know that you can find this program on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/The Vision is Possible. Oh, and before I go, how dare I? I can't believe it. Let me tell you where you can find Philly Willie. This is where you can find Phil. Let me bring in some music here. Yes. This is where you can find Phil, my darlings. And this is where you can find me. I own a lot of gold. And this is where you can find our show. Ooh, I just love this song. I'll see y'all tomorrow night. Have a beautiful day once again. Ciao.